On Christmas Eve, my 16-year-old daughter showed up at my parents' house, smiling, early, holding homemade cookies, and they looked her in the eyes and said, "There's no room for you." She drove home, alone, no dinner, no bed, not even a hug. When I saw her curled on the couch, still wearing the sweater she picked to impress them, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just knew they had no idea what they'd just started. My name is Dr. Kate Sanders. I'm 38 years old. I work in emergency medicine ER double shifts, midnight calls, chest compressions until my arms shake. I'm also a mother. Abby's my only daughter, 16. Smart, quiet, a little awkward just like I used to be. I built my life from scratch, paid for med school on blisters and graveyard shifts. And when my family needed help bills, a house, emergencies I gave. But that night, after all I had done, they made one thing clear. They didn't reject me. They rejected my child. Before we continue, take a second. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me in the comments, if your family did this to your daughter, what would you do? Let me take you back to the house, to the years I spent buying my way into love that was never really mine. Because this story didn't start on Christmas Eve. It started long before that. They called me the weird one before I even knew what that meant. I was 6 when I found a dead bird and asked if I could dissect it. Not out of cruelty, just curiosity. I wanted to understand how wings worked. My mom slapped the counter and snapped, "Jesus, Kate, what's wrong with you?" My older sister, Janelle, screamed and told the entire family I was trying to bring animals back from the dead. I got grounded for scaring her. That was my childhood. A fascination with anatomy got me labeled disturbed. Asking questions made me a show-off. Getting straight A's made me a problem. In our house, ambition was seen as arrogance, curiosity, a burden, and intelligence. Just something to mock. No one else in the family went to college. Some didn't even finish high school. I studied during commercial breaks and did my homework under the covers. By 12, my dad started joking, half joking that I wasn't his. To be mine, he'd say, you'd have to like beer and hate books. And then he'd laugh. Once, late at night, I overheard him asking my mom if she'd ever cheated, because I didn't look like anyone in the family. I never brought it up. Still haven't. But that moment cracked something in me. The idea that I wasn't just unloved, I was unwanted. Janelle, meanwhile, was everything I wasn't. Loud, pretty, average at best, but a master storyteller. She could turn a missed assignment into a charming anecdote. People adored her because she made them feel good about themselves. She called me Dr. Freak through middle school. When I actually became a doctor, she switched to Dr. Moneybags. So progress. When I got a full ride to med school, there was no celebration, no hug, no "we're proud of you." My mom just asked if I thought anyone would ever marry me. "Men don't like women who outshine them," she said. I told her maybe I'd marry myself. She didn't laugh. They never gave me a dime. Not for school, not for food, not for rent. I worked nights, bussed tables, studied during 2 a.m. breaks, and collapsed into bed with my feet aching and my stomach empty. And when I finally made it, when I got my first real job after 2 residencies, they started calling, asking for help. "An electric bill here, a medical form there, a new car deposit just until next month." I said yes, every time. When they were close to retirement, no savings, terrible credit, I bought them a house. 2 bedrooms, modest but stable. I paid the mortgage, kept it in my name. To them, it was theirs. To me, it was a way to show them I still believed. That maybe, just maybe, loyalty could earn love. And then there was Janelle. Her daughter Lily had just been accepted into a prestigious STEM summer camp. Janelle called me, gushing, "She's got your brain, Katie. This could change her life." Then she dropped the number $200. All worth it, she said. And you, of all people, can afford it. I paused. Because here's the thing, Abby, my daughter, never asked for anything like that. She wouldn't. She's thoughtful, quiet, the kind of kid who doesn't want to burden anyone. And yet, she could have benefited just as much. So I said no, politely, firmly. I told Janelle I was already covering Mom and Dad's mortgage, medical bills, and emergencies. Suggested she apply for aid. Her tone turned instantly. Wow. Must be nice to have everything and still be stingy. She's your niece. You're just jealous because Lily's actually going places. I didn't answer. Didn't defend. Just hung up. A week later, I overheard my mom say something similar. Something about how I always held Janelle back. How I made everyone else look bad. Just by existing. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat with it. Let it settle. 3 weeks before Christmas, the cracks began to widen. Abby had been looking forward to Christmas at their house. She packed her little gifts, baked cookies, even wore the sweater my mom once said she liked. She texted when she arrived. Everything seemed fine. But later that night, when I walked into my home, everything changed. Christmas Eve, 10:53 p.m. I pulled into the driveway, my head pounding from the double shift. My hands still smelled faintly of antiseptic and powdered gloves. I'd spent the last 2 hours doing chest compressions on a man who swore he was just tired, right up until his lips turned blue. I was supposed to come home to silence. Abby was spending the night at my parents' house, their tradition. She'd begged to drive herself this year, newly licensed and proud. We agreed. It made sense. My husband and I were both working late. When I stepped inside, the first thing I saw were her boots by the door. Then her coat tossed over the arm of the couch. Her overnight bag sat on the floor, still zipped. And then I saw her curled up on the couch, still in that sweater. Not asleep, just small, like she was trying to disappear into the cushions, like she didn't trust the furniture to hold her. I stood there, confused. Abby. She opened her eyes instantly like she'd been pretending to sleep. Hey, she whispered. My chest tightened. What happened? Why are you here? She sat up slowly, tugging her sleeves down over her hands. They said there wasn't any room. I blinked. Room where at the table. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. They said they weren't expecting me. Too many people already there. She tried to shrug it off like it didn't matter. But it did. It hurt. She kept going, trying to sound casual. Grandma said she couldn't add another chair last minute. She looked stressed, like I was making her night harder. I asked, "But you got there on time." "Yeah, right on time." She gave a soft, dry laugh. Grandma opened the door like I was at the wrong house. Then her voice dropped to almost nothing. She said there wasn't a bed left either. That was the second excuse. She said they didn't want me driving late, but also didn't know where to put me. So I left. I felt my stomach drop. Did anyone offer to take you home? Nope. I tried again. Did they let you eat? Another shrug. The table was full. Lily was in my seat. Grandpa was talking to her like she was the guest of honor. No one really looked at me. And then softly Grandma said, "It's just a full house this year." And Aunt Janelle nodded. So I left. She gestured toward the coffee table. I made toast. I looked. There it was. One piece of cold toast, bent slightly in the middle, and half a banana beside it. That was her Christmas dinner. That was what they left her with. I felt something twist inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Just that cold, fragile crack that comes right before something shatters. Abby whispered. I wasn't that hungry anyway. And then her eyes filled. She tried to fight it, blinked hard, bit her lip, tilted her head like tears were a choice. But she couldn't hold it in. She cried quiet, slow, like a faucet you can't quite shut off. "I was going to bring a pie," she murmured, "but I figured they had enough food." I sat next to her and wrapped my arms around her shoulders. She leaned into me without hesitation, like she'd been holding herself up out of pure defiance. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. "I know they don't like you," she said. But I thought, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. She thought she was separate from it. That being my daughter didn't mean she'd inherit my exile. "They didn't even say it meanly," she added. "It was just practical, like I was a folding chair they didn't have space for." I didn't say anything. What could I say? That they had 28 people in the house, including neighbors and distant cousins, and somehow no room for her? That the one person who'd come early, dressed respectfully, bearing cookies, was the only one turned away? Later, when she fell asleep, I stayed in the kitchen. I stared at her bag, still zipped, neatly packed. She'd brought the sweater my mom said she liked, wrapped presents for the little cousins, and those cookies. She made them herself. I opened the fridge. There was nothing special in it. We hadn't backed up Christmas because, why would we? We trusted them. But they didn't run out of food. They didn't run out of chairs. They ran out of compassion. They ran out of love. Or maybe they never had it in the first place. And they didn't say, "There's no room." They said, "Not you, not you." By morning, my husband walked in. I told him what happened, every word. He stood there in silence, one hand on the counter, the other gripping his keys. And then he asked one question. "So, what do we do now?" I didn't answer, not out loud, but I already knew. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to act. My husband stood in the kitchen with his hand resting lightly on the counter. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. We both knew this wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about patterns, about how long I'd let them treat me like a second-class daughter, how long I'd let them pretend Abby didn't matter, and how long I'd tried to buy my way into a family that never saw me as their own. He finally asked, "So, what do we do now?" I didn't answer, not out loud, but inside, the answer was clear. There's a difference between turning the other cheek and turning your back on your own child. They'd chosen the latter, and I was done. The next morning, I wrote a letter. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call. I didn't start a group chat. I wrote. It was direct, firm, and most importantly, legal. I reminded them the house was in my name, that I'd paid the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, and the taxes for 7 years. I explained without emotion, without accusations that the support was over. They would have 60 days to vacate. I even included resources for senior housing and financial assistance, not because I owed them anything, but because I didn't want them to claim cruelty when all I was giving was closure. That evening, with the letter in hand, my husband and I drove across town. The neighborhood was still lit with leftover Christmas lights, blinking weakly in the cold. I was hoping the house would be empty. It wasn't. There were 2 extra cars in the driveway, Janelle's SUV and another that probably belonged to a cousin still lingering for leftovers. We walked up the path in silence. He placed his hand gently on my back, steady, not guiding, just present. I rang the bell, waited, nothing. Rang again, still nothing. "Let's just leave it," he said gently. I stood for a second longer, then nodded. I slid the envelope into the doorframe, tucked where the wind couldn't take it. We turned to leave. And then I heard the creak of the screen door, a soft, slippered step. I turned. My mother stood there in her faded holiday robe, clutching her morning coffee. She bent down, picked up the envelope, opened it. I watched her face shift blank, then pale. Her eyes darted across the page, and then she screamed. "Frank." Her voice cracked like a snapped wire. "Frank, get out here. She's throwing us out." My father appeared at the door in yesterday's clothes. Behind him, Janelle wandered into view, still in her Christmas pajamas. Holding a mug like this was just a cozy morning surprise. My mother pointed down the driveway at me like I was some stray dog that had wandered into their yard.
"You ungrateful little—"
We got in the car and pulled away before I heard the rest. But I knew how the song went. I'd heard it my whole life. By the time we got home, my phone was already buzzing. I ignored it. Then again, and again. By the sixth call, I picked up. "How dare you?" my mother shrieked. "No hello? No pause. Not even a fake concern for Abby. You've lost your damn mind." In the background, I heard my father yell, "If you do this, you're no daughter of ours." They didn't ask what happened. Didn't mention Abby. Not once. It was all about them. The betrayal, the embarrassment, the inconvenience. I hung up. They kept calling. Then Janelle started texting. "This is going to ruin your reputation. Think of your career. You only get one mom." One cousin messaged me, "Not my place, but this feels extreme." Oh, honey. Extreme was my daughter eating toast for Christmas dinner while 28 people sat at a table she helped set, and not one of them noticed she wasn't fed. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. Of course. My mother. Same fuzzy robe, same wild, offended energy, clutching the letter now crumpled, damp, like she'd been squeezing it in her fist since yesterday. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She didn't wait. "You're really doing this," she hissed, "after everything we've done for you." I just stared. "You mean the house I bought you?" I asked quietly. "The bills I paid, the health coverage I arranged, because your Medicare doesn't cover your blood pressure meds." She flinched, just slightly, but she recovered fast. "We raised you. We gave you everything." "You didn't even let my daughter eat dinner," I said. That stopped her, briefly, but then she rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. We didn't have enough chairs." "There were 28 people there," I said flatly, "even a neighbor." Her mouth tightened. I continued. "I didn't send that letter to be cruel," I added. "But if you think you can treat Abby like she's disposable—" "Oh, for God's sake," she snapped. "Stop acting like we're monsters. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." She held up the eviction letter like it was some receipt she could void. And then, dead serious, she ripped it in half, right in front of me, like tearing paper could erase the truth. "That's done now," she said smugly. "If you want us to forgive you, pay for Lily's science camp and drop this ridiculous tantrum." Then she smiled, like she'd just solved the whole thing. I didn't say a word, because that was the moment I realized something. They never took me seriously, not when I was 6, not when I got my degree, not even now. They thought I'd fold, that I'd apologize, that I was still the awkward kid who should be grateful for their scraps. They were wrong. 2 days later, I sat across from a lawyer. I laid out the bills, the house deed, the mortgage history. He didn't flinch. "I assume you want a formal eviction?" he asked. I nodded. They tore up my letter, but they couldn't tear up the law. After meeting with the lawyer, the wheels started turning fast. I wasn't naive enough to think they'd just pack up and leave quietly. This was family, and family fights dirty. The eviction notice went out within a week, 60 days. Legal, official, stamped and signed. I kept paying the mortgage because I had to protect my credit, but I cut off everything else. Utilities, cable, medical reimbursements gone. They'd get a crash course in what no support actually looks like. The first few days after the notice were silent, too silent, like the calm before a storm. Then the calls started. Janelle's voice, sharp and demanding, accusing me of destroying the family. My mother's pleas for mercy. My father's threats about consequences. But I didn't answer. Not the phone. Not their texts. Instead, I kept documenting everything. Every bill paid. Every missed payment, every attempt I made to help, all their messages, their empty threats. One afternoon, I got a knock on my door. It was Aunt Elaine, the good aunt. Or so I thought. She had a tin of cookies and a rehearsed look of concern. "Kate," she began softly, "I just want to talk." I let her in, poured some tea, and sat down. She told me she didn't understand. She called it a misunderstanding, something that could be fixed with a little conversation. I told her about the cold toast Abby ate on Christmas, about the 28 people they packed into the house, including a neighbor and 2 cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, but not their own granddaughter. She looked away. "I didn't know," she whispered. I corrected her. "They didn't want you to know." Elaine left that day like someone who couldn't unhear what she'd just heard. 3 days later, I got a text from her. It said nothing, just a photo of a for sale sign. 2 months passed. The eviction date came and went. They hadn't moved a thing. So we proceeded. The process wasn't easy. The new owners of the house wanted full vacant possession. Their agent reminded me again and again. No exceptions. On eviction day, I wasn't there. I didn't want to see it. I heard it wasn't pleasant. Janelle took them in at first, playing the compassionate sister, the victim's advocate. She gave cousins interviews, spinning the story like I was abandoning them all over a holiday misunderstanding. 3 weeks later, she was at my door, eyes red-rimmed, hair pulled back in a messy bun. "I can't do it," she said. "They fight all the time. Mom says the living room's too cramped. Dad complains about the noise. They can't even agree on bathroom schedules." She was losing her mind. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "This is your choice," I said quietly. "They needed a rental. I told you what I did with Abby. You saw them turn her away on Christmas Eve." Janelle hesitated. Then she turned and left without another word. A week later, she kicked them out too. They ended up in a rental no one would brag about. 2 small rooms, 1 space heater, a crooked front step that looked like a shrug. Their pensions barely covered rent and groceries. No more vacations, no more anniversary cruises, no more dinner parties. Desperation led them to reach out to extended family. They claimed I abandoned them without warning, called me cold, unstable, selfish. But by then, I had already spoken quietly to uncles and cousins, sent them proof bills I covered, eviction notices stamped and certified. One cousin replied, "Wow." Another sent a thumbs up emoji. No one was rushing to rescue them, and I wasn't either. 2 months later, Abby and I sat on our porch sipping iced tea. No plans, no pretending, just peace. She said, "I don't miss them." Neither did I. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message without thinking. "Hope you're proud of what you've done." I deleted it instantly. No hesitation, no reaction. "They'll probably text again," Abby said, offhandedly. "They always do," I replied, "but they're not my problem anymore." Because they once said there wasn't room for Abby at their table. Now there's no room in our lives for cruelty, control, or manipulation. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in years, I felt free. Next, I'll tell you how they reacted when reality finally caught up to them, and what it felt like to finally take back control. After the eviction was finalized, silence fell over the neighborhood like a thick fog. For weeks, I heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no desperate pleas. It was as if they had been erased. But that calm didn't last. Slowly, the storm returned, and it was louder than ever. Janelle's voice cracked with frustration when she called me. "I'm losing my family. Kate, they hate me now." I listened quietly. She was caught in a web she'd helped spin, trapped between 2 sides, neither of which wanted her. She complained about the cramped rental, the constant bickering, the lost piece, and yet she had nowhere else to turn. My mother's calls came next. Not for me, for Abby. Your daughter is cold. She doesn't call, doesn't visit. Marlene's voice dripped with venom and guilt, as if blaming Abby would undo what she had done. But Abby didn't respond. She was busy building her own world. With every phone call I ignored, I felt lighter. The weight of years of resentment lifted bit by bit. Abby, meanwhile, was thriving in ways they never imagined. She was no longer the timid girl hiding behind sweaters and quiet smiles. She was bold, confident, focused on the future she wanted to create. College applications filled our kitchen table, alongside acceptance letters and scholarship forms. She was studying what she loved: science, technology, engineering, the very fields Lily had been sent to change her life in. We used the money from the house sale to pay for her tuition, books, and rent. But more than that, it gave us something priceless: peace. I remember one afternoon sitting on our porch. The sun was warm, the sky a perfect blue. Abby looked at me and said softly, "Mom, I don't miss them." And for the first time, I didn't have to pretend. Neither did I. The messages didn't stop, though. New numbers, unknown senders, threats thinly veiled as concern. "Hope you're proud. You'll regret this. Family doesn't forget." I deleted them all, without hesitation, without a single word. Because I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was my own woman. And Abby wasn't just my daughter, she was my legacy. The hardest part wasn't cutting ties with them. It was watching them refuse to see what they had lost. Their bitterness poisoned every word they spoke. Their pride blinded them to their own cruelty. But they could no longer hurt us, not the way they used to. Every time they reached out, I remembered the look in Abby's eyes that Christmas Eve, the smallness, the hunger, the silent rejection, and I knew I'd done the right thing. Friends and extended family reached out quietly. Some apologized for staying silent. Others shared stories of their own families, of toxic cycles, difficult choices, and painful breaks. I realized I wasn't alone. The freedom I found wasn't just mine, it was ours. A chance to rewrite the story. And rewrite it we did. Abby blossomed. She grew into a woman who knew her worth, who didn't wait for permission to shine. Our home became a sanctuary, not just a place, but a feeling. One afternoon, a cousin texted, "I'm sorry for everything. You don't deserve what they put you through." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. 2 years later, my parents still live in that small rental. No more cruises, no more parties, no more invitations. They point fingers at everyone but themselves. But Abby, she's thriving, in college, studying what she loves, building a life on her own terms. And me, I'm finally at peace. I don't return their calls. I don't send support. I don't lose sleep. Because I chose her. My daughter. My family. And if you ask me if I went too far or just far enough, I'd say this. Sometimes love means cutting the ties that hurt you. Sometimes the hardest thing is to say no. Sometimes protecting your family means protecting them from the people who should love them the most. In the final part, I'll share the lessons I learned, how this experience changed me, and why sometimes the hardest battles lead to the brightest futures. 2 years have passed since I sent that letter, since I drew a line in the sand, since I stopped begging for love that was never really mine. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much I carried on my shoulders for so long. The guilt, the hope, the endless trying to fix what was broken. Sometimes we spend our whole lives chasing approval from people who will never give it. We bend ourselves into shapes we don't recognize. We swallow hurt and silence to keep the peace. We believe that if we just try harder, love will come. But sometimes, love isn't meant to come. Not from those who only see you as a burden or a disappointment. not from those whose love is conditional or self-serving. I learned that the hard way. Abby and I had to rebuild from the ashes of a family that wasn't really a family that made room for everyone but her. And through that, I learned what real love looks like. It's quiet, it's steady, it's choosing to protect instead of punish. It's giving space to heal and grow. It's choosing her my daughter above all else. I know I'm not alone in this. There are so many of us out there, people trapped in toxic family cycles, weighed down by unspoken expectations, judged for simply being ourselves. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there now. It's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. It's okay to protect your peace, your dignity, your future. That's not betrayal. That's survival. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is break the cycle, to stop repeating patterns of hurt and silence, to choose love that lifts us up instead of tearing us down. Since then, Abby has flourished in ways I never imagined. She's blossomed into a young woman who knows her worth, who doesn't wait for permission to shine, who chases her dreams unapologetically. She studies what she loves. She's confident. She laughs more freely. She's home in her own skin. Watching her grow has been the greatest gift. It's proof that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most beautiful outcomes. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes along the way. There were times I doubted myself, felt overwhelmed by loneliness and fear. But every time those doubts crept in, I reminded myself I was doing this for Abby, for us. I chose to be a mother who protects, not one who stays silent. A mother who fights for her child's place at the table no matter how hard the fight. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's this. You deserve love that sees you, that values you, that makes room for you. You don't have to settle for less. You don't have to tolerate cruelty disguised as family loyalty. Your family can be the people who show up, who support, who celebrate you, not just the ones you were born to. Sometimes, the family you choose is the family that chooses you back. So, what about you? Have you ever had to make the painful choice to walk away from someone you love, or struggled to protect someone you care about, from those who should have been their safe place? I'd love to hear your stories. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you would do if you were in my shoes. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about love, loss, and the messy beauty of family. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to find our place in the world, our seat at the table. Thank you for listening. This isn't just my story. It's a story about boundaries, about courage, and about choosing yourself when no one else will. If you're struggling, know this, you're not alone. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is the one that sets you free. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love.